Chosen one, stop everything you are doing right now. Heaven has something specific to say to you today, and it cannot wait. Not because God is urgent in the way that fear is urgent, but because what is being revealed in this season is time-sensitive. In the best possible way. The lid is coming off something that has been sealed for too long. A truth that has lived in the dynamics of your family system is being brought into the light, and the moment heaven is speaking about right now is not a single conversation. It is not one misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion. It is a moment that broke something in you, a moment that revealed the true nature of your family's priorities, a moment where you stood alone, while everyone else chose comfort over truth, peace over justice, the abuser over the abused. Chosen one, heaven is exposing the family gathering where everyone sided with your abuser. And what happened in that room is not something you imagined. It is not something you misinterpreted. It was a betrayal. And the truth that is coming out will validate everything you felt but could not prove. You have carried that moment for a long time, that strange, surreal experience of speaking your truth and watching the room turn against you. The way people who claimed to love you suddenly became strangers. The pattern of your pain being minimized while your abuser's reputation was protected. You dismiss these feelings more times than you can count. You told yourself you must have said it wrong. You told yourself that if you had been calmer, clearer, more composed, they would have believed you. You told yourself that maybe what happened to you was not as bad as you remembered, because if it was, surely these people would not be defending the person who hurt you. But chosen one, you did know it. You have always known it. The knowing was not unclear. The knowing was simply too devastating to fully accept, because accepting it means confronting something that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. It means acknowledging that the people who were supposed to protect you chose to protect your abuser instead, that the family you belonged to valued its image more than your safety. That blood does not always mean loyalty, and sometimes the people who share your last name are the ones who hurt you most. Today, that changes, because God has a different kind of love than the kind that protects people from necessary truth. His love is the kind that exposes what is hidden so that healing can actually begin. And what he is exposing today is not meant to destroy your family. It is meant to deliver you from the illusion that you were the problem in that room. Type 777 in the comments if you have carried the weight of a family gathering where you were blamed for speaking truth about your abuse. That number is your declaration that heaven sees what happened in that room, and that what you experienced was real. Subscribe before we go any further. Messages like this are released when the Spirit leads, not on a fixed schedule. If you miss even one, you may be walking the next season without the word heaven specifically prepared for you. Subscribe now and stay connected. Before I tell you what they did, I want you to understand something about who you are. Because the story of their betrayal begins with you, not with your weakness, but with your courage. You have always carried something that was difficult for dysfunctional systems to tolerate. A refusal to pretend, a willingness to name what was happening, even when naming it was dangerous.
A capacity to speak truth even when truth-telling meant losing everything.
That courage was visible to them from the moment you opened your mouth in that gathering, and it created something in them that was deeper than discomfort. It created panic, not the kind that shows up as obvious fear, but the kind that shows up as defense, deflection, and attack. Because chosen one, when you named the abuse, when you broke the family's unspoken rule of silence, when you exposed what everyone had agreed to keep hidden, you became a threat, not to your abuser alone, but to the entire system that had protected your abuser for years. Every person in that room had made a choice, whether consciously or unconsciously, to overlook what was happening to you, to minimize the signs, to explain away the red flags, to maintain the family's image at the expense of your safety. And when you spoke, when you forced them to acknowledge what they had chosen to ignore, you did not just expose your abuser, you exposed them, their complicity, their cowardice, their willingness to sacrifice you, to preserve their own comfort. This is where the siding began, not in a careful evaluation of the evidence, but in a desperate need to protect themselves from the truth you were telling. You came the problem they had to silence. Now, let me tell you specifically what they did in that room, not in vague spiritual language, not in metaphor, but plainly, because you deserve to see the pattern clearly so that you can finally stop wondering whether you had the right to be hurt by what happened. The first thing they did was question your credibility instead of investigating your claim. This is the foundational move in every enabler system. When you named the abuse, when you described what was done to you, when you asked for acknowledgement and accountability, they did not ask your abuser to explain themselves. They asked you to prove it. They questioned your memory. They suggested you were exaggerating. They pointed out that you were emotional, as though being emotional about abuse somehow invalidated the abuse itself. They asked why you were bringing this up now, why you did not say something sooner, why you did not have witnesses, why your story had details that did not align perfectly with their understanding of events that they were not even present for. And chosen one, every question served the same function, to put you on trial instead of the person who hurt you, to make your credibility the issue rather than your abuser's behavior. Type "I believe myself" in the comments if you were questioned and doubted instead of believed and supported. When you spoke about your abuse, that declaration is your spirit reclaiming what the room tried to take from you. The second thing they did was defend your abuser's character, as though character negates behavior. This is one of the most painful dynamics in enabler systems. Because chosen one, they did not deny that something happened. At least not entirely. What they did was explain it away. By pointing to your abuser's good qualities, they said things like, "But they are such a good person. They have always been kind to me. I have never seen them act that way. They are going through a lot right now. Everyone makes mistakes. They did not mean it the way you are taking it. You know they love you." And every statement served to minimize what was done to you by elevating who your abuser is to everyone else, as though being charming to some people cancels out being cruel to you, as though having good days erases the bad ones, as though intentions matter more than impact. And chosen one, this tactic is especially effective because it makes you feel crazy, because you are not denying that your abuser has good qualities. You are not saying they are evil in every moment to every person. You are saying that they hurt you, that the harm was real, that the impact was devastating. But when the family reframes abuse as a misunderstanding, deflate people when they treat your trauma as though it is just your perspective on a complicated situation, they erase the power imbalance. They erase the pattern. They erase the harm. And they protect the abuser while silencing you. This mission, the work of getting this word to the chosen ones who need it at exactly the right moment, exists because people who received something real chose to give something back. If something here is already reaching you, consider supporting it through the link in the description. A coffee, a donation. Whatever your spirit moves you toward, every seed planted here becomes the next message that finds the next chosen one at the exact moment heaven scheduled for them. Stay with me. The third thing they did was pressure you to forgive and move on. The requiring your abuser to acknowledge or change. This is where the spiritual manipulation enters the dynamic. Because chosen one, they used faith language to protect dysfunction. They told you that forgiveness means letting it go, that holding on to hurt is bitterness, that you need to release it for your own good, that God requires you to forgive 70 times 7, that the family cannot heal if you keep bringing up the past. And they framed all of this as concern for your spiritual health, as wisdom, as biblical truth. But chosen one, what they were actually doing was protecting your abuser from consequences, because forgiveness, real biblical forgiveness, does not mean pretending the harm did not happen. It does not mean restoring relationship without repentance. It does not mean trusting someone who has not changed. Real forgiveness is releasing your right to punish the person who hurt you and entrusting justice to God. But it does not require you to subject yourself to ongoing harm. It does not require you to normalize abuse. It does not require you to participate in family gatherings as though nothing happened while your abuser sits across from you, unrepentant and unaccountable. What your family was demanding was not forgiveness, it was silence. It was your complicity in the cover-up. It was your agreement to pretend that everything was fine, so that they could be comfortable again. Type 333 in the comments if you were pressured to forgive and move on while your abuser faced no consequences and made no changes. That number is your declaration that you see the difference between true biblical forgiveness and being silenced in God's name. The fourth thing they did was make you the problem for disrupting the family's peace. They shifted the focus from the abuse to your reaction to the abuse. They said you were causing division. You were making things awkward. You were refusing to let go. You were holding the family hostage with your pain. They treated your boundary as an attack, your truth-telling as betrayal, your refusal to pretend as hostility, and they framed the entire conflict as though it started with you speaking, rather than with the abuse that made you speak. And chosen one, this is gaslighting at a systemic level, because the peace they wanted you to preserve was not real peace. It was the appearance of peace. It was the absence of uncomfortable conversation. It was the ability to gather without having to acknowledge the harm that was sitting in the room with them. But real peace is not the absence of conflict. Real peace is the presence of justice. And there is no justice in a system that protects abusers and silences victims. There is no peace
in a room where the person who was harmed is treated like the problem, while the person who caused the harm is treated like the victim of your anger.
Chosen one, I want to pause here and speak to something that has been one of the most painful parts of this entire dynamic. Not the abuse itself, though that was devastating. Not even the family siding with your abuser, though that was a betrayal that words can barely capture. But something quieter, and in many ways more damaging than either of those things. The loneliness of being the only one who sees the truth. Because, chosen one, when an entire room of people who know you, people who claim to love you, people who have watched you grow up, when all of them look at you and say that what you experienced did not happen the way you remember it, that what you are feeling is an overreaction, that what you need is to forgive and forget. It does something to your sense of reality that is difficult to repair. You start to question everything. Maybe you are crazy. Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe the abuse was not as bad as it felt. Maybe you are the problem after all. And that doubt, beloved, that is one of the deepest wounds this dynamic creates. Because it is not just the loss of family. It is the loss of your own ability to trust what you know. Heaven is speaking into that wound today. You were not crazy. You were not too sensitive. You were not overreacting. What happened to you was real. The harm was significant. The abuse was unacceptable. And the fact that your family could not see it or chose not to see it does not mean it did not happen. It means they failed you. It means the system was more committed to its own comfort than to your protection. It means they chose wrong, and you have been carrying the weight of their failure as though it was yours. Heaven is lifting that weight today. Send this right now to 3 people your spirit names, the chosen ones in your life, who have been carrying the same loneliness, who stood in a room and were not believed, who need to hear that heaven saw everything that happened and that they were not wrong. Send it now, not later, because some words need a human hand to carry them to the person they were meant for. Then come back. Now, Chosen One, let me speak to you about what is happening in this moment, because the exposure is not a future event. It is already in motion. Heaven does not announce justice and then wait. When God decides to reveal what was done in secret, the process begins immediately, and it works from the inside of the system outward. The family members who sided with your abuser are beginning to see cracks in the narrative they accepted. Because 1. Abusers do not change just because they got away with it once. They escalate. They repeat patterns. They hurt other people. And in this season, heaven is allowing your abuser's behavior to become undeniable. Someone else is starting to see what you saw. Someone else is starting to experience what you experienced. Someone else is starting to ask the question that you asked. And the people who dismissed you, the ones who said you were exaggerating, the ones who defended your abuser's character, they are starting to realize that maybe you were telling the truth all along. And that realization is uncomfortable. It forces them to confront their own complicity. It makes them ask questions they do not want to answer. If you were telling the truth, why did we not believe you? If the abuse was real, what does that say about us for protecting the abuser? If we were wrong, how do we make that right? And some of them, Chosen One, some of them will come to you. They will apologize. They will admit they should have believed you. They will ask for your forgiveness. And when they do, you will have a choice to make about whether you want them back in your life. But some of them will not. Some of them will double down. They will continue to protect the abuser, even as the evidence mounts. They will shift the story. They will find new excuses. They will do anything to avoid admitting that they were wrong. And Chosen One, that is not your problem to fix. That is their character being revealed. And heaven is taking note. Type, "I trust God," with the justice in the comments. If you believe that what God has set in motion on your behalf cannot be stopped by anyone, let that declaration release the outcome to the one who holds it. Now, Chosen One, let me speak to you about what this season requires of you. Because the exposure that heaven is delivering is not an invitation for you to go back to that family system and demand an apology. It is not permission to force people to admit they were wrong. It is not a mandate to return to gatherings and prove that you were right all along. The exposure is heaven's assignment, not yours. And your assignment in this season is something that requires more strength than vindication. It requires you to protect your peace. Protecting your peace means accepting some people will never acknowledge
message. It means releasing the need for the family to validate your experience.
It means building a life where your worth is not determined by whether they finally see the truth. Chosen one. The moment you have been waiting for, where the whole family gathers and admits they were wrong, where your abuser is held accountable, where you are vindicated in front of everyone who doubted you. That moment may never come, and you do not need it. Heaven has already vindicated you. What was done to you was seen, recorded, and is being addressed. That is the only vindication that has the power to restore what was taken. Human acknowledgement is beautiful when it comes, but it is not the foundation your healing stands on. God's witness of your pain and his commitment to justice is that foundation. I want to pause here and ask you something honest. This work reaches chosen ones like you, because people who received something chose to give something back. If this message has already done something in your spirit today, support this mission through the link in the description. A coffee, a donation, whatever you are moved to give, because when you give from a place of genuine stirring, heaven takes notice of that too. Now, beloved, let me tell you what you were not wrong about, because chosen one of the deepest wounds this dynamic left was not the family's betrayal itself, but the self-doubt that came from being the only one in the room who saw what was true. When an entire family looks at you and says you are wrong, it is hard to hold on to what you know. When people you love defend the person who hurt you, it is easy to start believing that maybe the hurt was not as bad as it felt. And over time, you internalize their doubt. You started to question your own memory. You wondered whether you were making too much of what happened, whether your pain was valid, whether you had the right to be hurt. You were not wrong, not about any of it. The abuse you experienced was real and significant. Your pain was valid and deserved to be honored. Your decision to speak was courageous, not divisive. Your boundary after the betrayal was wisdom, not bitterness. What your spirit told you about the family, choosing comfort over truth, that was accurate perception, not paranoia. Heaven is confirming it today, so that you can finally set down the weight of self-doubt you have been carrying and walk into what is next with the full confidence that what you experienced was real, what you felt was legitimate, and what you needed from them was reasonable. The family's failure to provide it was not your fault. It was their failure. And now that heaven has confirmed what you knew, you can stop questioning your sanity and start trusting the truth that your body, your heart, and your spirit have been trying to tell you all along. Chosen one. Scripture tells us in Matthew 10:34-36, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against her father, and a daughter against her mother, and a person's enemies will be those of his own household." This is not a comfortable verse, but it is a true one, because sometimes following truth, setting boundaries, refusing to participate in dysfunction. It creates division. Not because you are divisive, but because the system cannot tolerate honesty. And when you choose truth over the family's comfort, when you choose your safety over their image, when you choose healing over their peace, you will be seen as the problem. But chosen one, Jesus himself, said that this would happen. He said that your enemies would sometimes be those of your own household. Not because family is inherently bad, but because dysfunctional family systems will protect themselves at any cost, even if the cost is you. Type 777 again in the comments if you receive the truth that choosing your healing over the family's dysfunction was not betrayal. It was obedience. Let heaven hear that declaration again, because this moment is worth marking twice. Make sure you have subscribed before we reach what comes next. What follows is the restoration and the new community. Heaven is preparing for you in this exact season. Subscribe so that when heaven releases the next word, it finds you ready. Now, chosen one, let me speak about what is coming next for you, because this exposure is not the end of the story. It is the clearing of the ground for something new to be built. Heaven does not remove what is toxic without preparing something healthy to be there in its place. Heaven does not operate in voids. When it clears a space, it is preparing it for something specific. And what is specific in this season is the experience of being believed. The gift of relationships where your truth is honored. The blessing of community that does not require you to minimize your pain to make other people comfortable. The people who were meant to stand with you, who will believe you the first time you speak, who will choose you over the abuser without hesitation, are being positioned. The spaces where abuse is not tolerated, where victims are protected, where truth-telling is celebrated rather than punished, are opening. You are about to experience what it feels like to be in a room where people believe you, where your pain is validated, where the person who hurt you is held accountable instead of defended. This is not just healing, this is restoration. And the restoration is not just relational. It is spiritual, because chosen one. Every moment you spent doubting yourself, because your family doubted you. Every season you walked through feeling alone, because they chose the abuser. Every gathering you avoided, because being in that room felt like betrayal. Heaven has kept a record, and what was stolen is being returned with interest. The validation that should have been yours from the beginning is being released now. The protection that was withheld is being provided by people who understand what you survived, the family you deserved. The one that believes victims and confronts abusers is being built around you. And this time, no one's comfort comes before your safety. This is the season of double for your trouble. This is the season of restoration for what the locusts ate. This is the season where you are surrounded by people who choose you, who believe you, who protect you. the way your family should have from the beginning. And the most beautiful part of this moment is that you do not have to convince anyone. You do not have to prove yourself. You do not have to earn belief. The right people will see you clearly and choose you immediately. Hit the like button right now, not for the algorithm, as a declaration that you receive this restoration. That single press is your spirit, saying to heaven, I accept the new community you are building around me. I release the old room that failed me. Let that be your yes before we close. If this word has confirmed what your spirit has been carrying quietly, if something in this message gave language to what you already knew, comment Amen below as a simple act of agreement. Not because a ritual makes it real, but because your spirit needs to hear itself agree with what heaven has spoken. Your new chapter activates when you choose to receive what God has already prepared. Share this with someone who is experiencing family betrayal after abuse, who stood alone while everyone sided with the person who hurt them, or who is struggling to trust their own memory because everyone said they were wrong. Send this to everyone on your heart right now, because the that touched you starts to move through you the moment you become the hand that carries it to the next person. And if this word has done something real in your spirit today, support this mission through the link in the description. Your contribution does not just sustain this work, it seeds the next message that reaches the next chosen one at the exact moment heaven scheduled for them. Subscribe and stay connected. Chosen one, receive this now. You were not wrong. You were not crazy. You were not too sensitive. You were abused, and your family failed to protect you when you needed them most. What was hidden is now being exposed. What was dismissed is being validated. What was denied is being acknowledged. Walk forward. Heaven has gone ahead of you, and what is waiting on the other side of this exposure is worth every moment of wait. The family that sided with your abuser, whatever their fears, they are not the author of your story. They were characters in a chapter that is now closing. They do not have the pen. They never had the pen. The one who holds the pen of your life is the same one who sealed something over you before you were born, who watched every moment of what you walked through, who recorded every betrayal, and who is now writing the chapter that comes after the exposure. That chapter, chosen one, is one that neither they, nor your abuser,
nor anyone who chose wrong will be able to interfere with.
Your story is not finished. It is turning, and the turn is in your favor.